Hi everybody, thanks for joining me on my tours of cemeteries, gravesites, memorials, and final resting places of the famous and infamous people who are gone but not forgotten. I always tend to be early for everything, so today was really no exception. Jim and I drove in from Palm Springs to Pasadena to visit the Huntington Library and Museum and art galleries and, of course, the mausoleum. But we arrived about an hour early, so we decided to do a little bit of sightseeing to kill some time. A couple of miles away from the Huntington Library is this Pasadena landmark called the Fork in the Road. It's just a gigantic fork at an intersection where you can go one or two ways. So it literally is a fork in the road. Now, it's interesting because up close, you can see the fork is just made of wood and it's painted silver. From a distance and in photos, it really looks like it's a metal sculpture. The Huntington Library is located in San Marino, California, right next door to Pasadena, and I think about 1 million people a year visit the library. The grounds are enormous, and there's so much to see that it can take all day, and in fact, you can spend the entire day here and not see everything. Once the gates opened, I headed directly to the mausoleum, and Jim was more interested in the art gallery and the library and the botanical gardens, so he went that way and I went the other way. So we took our own forks in the road today and bumped into each other every now and then, and thank goodness for cell phones. It makes it so easy to reconnect whenever you want to. Once you enter the gates of the Huntington Library, the mausoleum is going to be on the right-hand side, and the parking lot's going to be on the left-hand side. And then if you go straight ahead, that's where the actual entrance is, where you pay admission. The gates to the mausoleum were open today, so I went in. I was the only one there, and I'm really not sure if it's open all the time, or maybe you don't have to pay to go into this section. Maybe you only have to pay if you're going into to see the library, the actual botanical gardens, the art galleries, and other attractions. So if your main reason for coming is to visit the mausoleum, I would definitely call in advance just to make sure that it is open to the public on the day that you'll be arriving. If this mausoleum looks familiar to you, it might be because it was designed by John Russell Pope, the architect who also designed the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. There really are a lot of similarities between the two structures, although this one is quite a bit smaller. For those of you who have never been to the Huntington Library or are not familiar with Henry Edwards Huntington, he was a railroad mogul and real estate tycoon back in the 1800s. He made his fortune helping to build the railroads from coast to coast here in the U.S. During that time, he relocated from the East Coast to the West Coast. He moved to San Francisco, and then in 1902, he moved to Los Angeles, where he began to expand the electric railway system that we already had here in Southern California. The system was called the Red Cars, and it's a really fascinating story about how early Los Angeles did have a transit system that was, from what I've read, put out of business by the tire companies and the oil companies and the automobile companies who didn't want the competition. You can Google it for more information if you're interested. The library is the former home or estate of Henry and his wife Arabella Huntington. Their actual home is now one of the art galleries. If you're interested in historic home tours, this is definitely one you'll want to see. The art collection here is really impressive. It includes more than 1,000 pieces of art, spanning more than 500 years. For those of you who are interested, I thought I would also show you some of the highlights of our day here at the Huntington Library and Grounds. Even though so much of the library is dedicated to the study of history, one of the most interesting and coolest things I discovered today was all about studying the future. The Orbit Pavilion is one of the coolest architectural and art structures I've ever seen, and it was created as a concert venue. Apparently, as multiple satellites orbit the Earth continuously, they collect data and sound from space, and those sounds are then turned into soundscapes that you can listen to in the pavilion. I visited the pavilion a couple times during the day because every time I went in, people were talking instead of listening. So I thought, well, if I go back later, maybe that group of people will be gone and another group of people will be a little bit more courteous and will actually listen to the music. But that never happened. But overall, the talking, you can still hear the really beautiful and interesting music created by these satellites collecting noise from outer space. Here are a few more images from our visit today. And if you're interested, I'll put the contact information and website down below this video in case you're in Southern California and would like to visit yourself. It's a great way to spend a day or more. Down below this video is a link to the Google Map tour of this famous gravesite and some other information that you might find interesting. As always, if you enjoyed today's tour, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you all next time.